Ajafo Foka TV sini da mase se de bia mo subscribe na motumi ehwe Jimedi edigu eye channel we so. Mede ni Franco so kwagesi ama betimi afremi Foka nene ye bedi nkomo yensa ka Dr. Hamet Malana one founder of Ministry of the Future. Ye na be besi nkonwa na yesua nyama bebre efini nchen. Year of return a course 2019 no enfa na sha se fie. Efiri soro na baaye anase ba ne sen ni nyina no ye de munchemu ebetum dam chance na behwe slavery in general no different perspective what tinyama be about slavery by this time around no ye beka different perspective and a different narrative onso untumi enti ene no eye Africa and diaspora affairs na etimi e de ebro enti meka twini kakra ma ba modern so etimi aka brofo na bibia so etima konkan. So you're welcome to Foka TV. My name is Franco Sukojesiama, and today I have with me, I'm very honored to have with me Dr. Hamet Malana, the founder of Ministry of the Future. We are going to sit down and talk much about the year of return. Was it conjured from the sky just like the golden stool, or it was worked out by a group of people? We're just going to learn more about it, and also we're just going to talk about slavery, the narrative that you've not heard about. You know, we have so many narratives around in our history books. Some even tell us that Africans sold ourselves into slavery. Today we are going to learn and read more about a different narrative. So don't go anywhere.
This show is proudly brought to you by Oheneba Ghana Rice, Amen Mat, Becky Bell Homemade Pizza, Debbie's Collection, Ma Docker's Pastries, Pizzeria Food Delivery.
As first time akwaba edeba Foka TV so ene meka just say yensaka eye opinion kese the founder of Ministry of the Future e wo hase ene ne babetwetwe nkomo. You are once again welcome to Foka TV. I told you that we've been honored to have a master teacher Dr. Hamet Malana today in our studio to discuss more about slavery and the year of return. Dr. Malana, you are welcome to Foka TV.
Thank you. Very much. Thank you.
Akwaba. Okay, so we've heard so many narratives about slavery, and we would love to, in summary, can you give us a different narrative, different from what you've learned so far?
Okay, when you say give you a different narrative,
yeah,
talking about slavery, because slavery is a very, very broad topic.
Yeah.
Where would you like to start from?
I would love you to explain or give a narrative where most of the Africans living here don't see the need for African diasporans to even return to their motherland. And our brothers from the diaspora also feel that we sold them into slavery. So they don't have anything to do with us.
Okay, if I were to pick that up, you know, there are so many false narratives that are happening.
Okay.
First of all, we have to understand this. Slavery, as we know, the transatlantic slave trade, the trans-Saharan slave trade. I won't concentrate too much on the trans-Saharan, but the trans-Saharan was really controlled by the Arabs.
Okay.
And the Arabs started that trade at least 600 years before the transatlantic slave trade.
Okay.
But if we pick up on the transatlantic slave trade, this is what involves sub-Saharan Africa and what we call Africans of the diaspora.
Okay.
Those who were kidnapped. And we must understand, it wasn't a trade. It was actually a kidnapping. They were kidnapped from here, and we know at the time, the peak lasted 400 consecutive years.
Okay.
And at the peak of the slave trade, transatlantic slave trade, there were 66 slave forts. Now this is where Ghana, formerly the Gold Coast, Ghana comes in very important here, because out of the 66 slave forts that began in Senegal, and they continued to build them all the way down to Angola, out of the 66, wouldn't you know it, Ghana, the Gold Coast, had 46. I repeat that. Out of the total of 66 slave forts of the 400-year transatlantic slave trade, out of the 66 slave forts, Ghana, the Gold Coast, had 46.
Okay.
So that's why there is such an affinity of the Africans of the diaspora, if you will, with West Africa, rather than East Africa, North Africa, or South Africa.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because the slave coast is stretched from Senegal all the way down to Angola. Now you do the mathematics.
Okay.
If there were 66 in total, and Ghana, the Gold Coast there,
Yeah.
at 46, do the mathematics. Either the majority of those kidnapped
Yeah.
either are from Ghana, which we know they are not from Ghana, not all, or they came through Ghana. So Ghana was a major player. The Gold Coast was a major player. Now to get to the second dimension of your question,
Yeah.
the Africans of the diaspora, why do they claim or blame the blame
Back,
game?
yeah.
You know, there's a lot of room to go around for the blame game.
Yeah.
We should not be in the blame game right now because who profits? Who profits from us accusing each other? It is the kidnapper himself, the culprit. But we know for a fact, it would be remiss of me not to say that many of our chiefs and queen mothers
Yeah.
participated in selling their own into slavery. We know that. But for the lounge share in the masses of our rulers, the masses of our people fought against, they fought against this for over 400 years. So we were never in agreement with selling our people into slavery.
Okay.
That has to be made clear.
Okay.
Now, the other dimension of your question
Yeah.
is did the narrative that is being pushed today,
Yeah.
the year of return, the right of return, did it fall from the sky?
Yeah.
Well, you should know right there, inherent within what I just said a moment ago,
Yeah.
that no, the year of return, the right of return did not fall from the sky.
Okay.
We must understand the first victim of the kidnapping,
Yeah.
and let us be clear about that. The kidnapping of our people just did not begin on the coast. It began in the village,
Okay.
in the villages, meaning that the villages were purged,
Okay.
ravished by these evil forces. And in order for the invaders to kidnap one villager to take into slavery,
Yeah.
they had to kill 7 defending that one. This is in history, so
Okay.
this is not anything conjecture. No.
Okay.
And so we look at that, and this went on for 400 years. Now, what we have to understand, that someone who is snatched from the womb of their mother
Yeah.
will always want to return back to their mother.
Okay.
And so the right to return actually was manifested in the hearts and mind, spirit, and soul of the first victims who were kidnapped while they were being in transit going across the Atlantic Ocean. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It take about 3 months plus to cross. During that whole voyage, there was the thinking, there was the manifestation of doing everything possible so that I have my right to return back.
Okay.
Even with landing on the shores in the Americas, landing in Jamaica, the Caribbean, Brazil, the victims still wanted to return back to where they came from.
Okay.
So that was already being manifested.
Okay.
Now, when we come to the year of return,
Yeah.
did it fall from the sky?
Yeah.
I've just shown you the right to return, of course, did not fall from the sky. So the year of return is an outgrowth of the right to return.
Okay.
Now, what had happened was slavery ended, and you had this manifestation period.
Yeah.
I won't go into all the detail of that, but over 100 some odd years.
Yeah.
And then I think we must give credit to the first head of state of Ghana, His Excellency Osajefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah.
Okay.
Dr. Kwame Nkrumah gave the calling for Africans of the diaspora to come and help to build Ghana when Ghana became independent
Okay.
on the 6th of March, 1957. And so this was really the calling of a right to return. Then you had many other Pan-Africanists.
Okay.
There are too many to even name, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we know one of the famous ones was like Marcus Messiah Garvey. You had him. And you also had Malcolm X.
Yeah.
He was propagating this.
Yeah.
Many others. Then you had the Caribbeans
Yeah.
from Trinidad, Tobago. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They, C.L.R. Jones.
Yeah.
You had Stanley Williams. all of them were talking about coming back. And of course, we had at the turn of the 20th century, right at the beginning of the 20th century,
Yeah.
was W.E.B. Du Bois. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was propagating that, and he eventually came to Ghana and died in Ghana. So the right to return was manifested by all of them. Now, we want to pick up the more contemporary period.
Yeah.
Let's start with 1990.
Okay.
Really, in my case, it
Yeah.
starts in 1989.
Okay.
In 1989, I wrote a paper while living in Ghana.
Okay.
I wrote a paper to the head of state, His Excellency, the late Jerry John Rawlings, and it had to do with reparation. He extended an invitation to me to come down from Tekrati, where I was living, and to meet him at the council.
Okay.
But fast track that, unfortunately, the war in Liberia broke out. And by the time that I arrived in Accra that morning, at about 8 o'clock, we left Tekrati, I think about 5 o'clock in the morning. We got to Accra about 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And all the officialdom was preparing itself to establish the ECOMOG force to deal with the Liberian situation. So I didn't see the head of state, so I was directed over to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And over to the Ministry of the Foreign Affairs, I had the letter, I presented the letter
Yeah.
to the a junior lawyer named Nee Kwesi Kwartey.
Okay.
And not knowing at that particular point there's going to be a very phenomenal, long relationship that's going to bring big dividends in about 35 years from that particular meeting of Nee
Okay.
Kwesi Kwartey. And so then I was given a grant by the government
Yeah.
in the National Commission on Culture.
Yeah.
They gave me a 5 million Old Cities Ghana
Yeah.
grant to do research about the origin of Ghanaian ethnic groups. I think there were about 4 to 5 that I had to research.
Okay.
I was moved from Tekrati to Accra. I was in residence at the W.E.B. Du Bois Center under the auspices, if you will, and authority of the Ghana National Commission on Culture. And there I began to teach. And we can say 1990, I began to formulate the principle of our right to return, our right to return.
Okay.
I was even teaching under a neem tree because I had no seminar hall to teach. And so then Sister Ima Kus and her husband, the late Nana Ben, they came in around 1991, 1992. Then Fiancra came around 1993. And so it began to formulate where the year of return, the right to return
Yeah.
was metamorphizing, if you will. We were
Okay.
putting that together. And so the long and the short of that was this. We tried throughout the period of the 1990s with Panifest,
Yeah.
the late F.Y. Sutherland. She must be given a lot of credit.
Yeah.
Because with the Panifest 1992, it shook the consciousness, it galvanized the whole African diaspora community globally.
Okay.
But still, we were on the road to get the right to return.
Okay.
Then when the government of President Kufuor
Well-
came to power in the year 2000, we actually submitted a proposal and a petition for the right to return. We got the right of abode. The right of abode was not
Enough.
enough. So then we continued on that, demanding, with petitions. Then we also liaison with President Mills, but something phenomenal happened.
Okay.
When Mills had an untimely death in 2012.
2012.
Then the Vice President, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, became the President of Ghana.
Yeah.
Now, I have been told that John Dramani Mahama and his younger brother had visited while I was teaching at the Du Bois Center. I had an African Conscious Study Group, which I just mentioned a moment ago.
Yeah.
It started in 1990 and it went consecutively on a weekly basis until 2017. Many of the big wigs now who are in politics, they used to come to my class when they were very young. And I understood that they had passed through the class. So then if I move fast track and move on up, I was constantly petitioning. I established the Ministry of the Future in 2014. We began to have these African Conscious Study Group classes
Yeah.
with Dr. Obadele Kambon at the University of Ghana Institute of African Studies. We hosted so many programs on a weekly, a monthly basis. And so by 2015, a phenomenal thing happened. It was that the young junior lawyer who was director of legal affairs at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 1989, Nikwesi Kwati, the Honorable Nikwesi Kwati, was selected now to become the executive secretary to the president of Ghana. 2015. So Nikwesi Kwati, he and I had continued our linkage and a friendship and what have you. Now the door was open. So I actually got with him and we began to cultivate the idea. And one of the most important things in speaking with him is I had to go to the Bible. And going to the Bible, this was the pillar. Because excuse me for saying this a moment. There are two principles. If anyone wants to get the attention of a Ghanaian or an African, especially coming from outside, in order to get the principal attention of a Ghanaian, you put US dollars on the table. The Ghanaian will give you his undivided attention. Or you invoke the Bible and talk about Jesus Christ. Since I did not have the money, I invoked the Bible. And it was a true fact that this passage in the Bible, Genesis chapter 15, verses 13 and 14, I presented that to Nikwesi Kwati and told him, the people that they are talking about in that passage, in the Bible, it is us, those Africans who were kidnapped from here and taken to a foreign land, spent over 400 years. Now we are coming home, and it says at the end of it, the Most High would judge the ones who kidnapped you. And the Most High would deal with that entity that kidnapped the children. And I feel that this was a situation where it would be able to convince the president to actually give citizenship to Africans of the diaspora. So the long and the short of that, if I may say right here, I presented a proposal. Do you want me to stop right now?
No, I'll just try to come in, then you continue from there. One thing that I wanted us to talk about is, aside you trying to do all these things, you've mentioned so many people who started all this right of return, starting from Marcus Muzar Garvey straight to so many, let me say, freedom fighters and activists who were trying to preach and send the message across. When you got here and you started all this thing, who was really supporting you financially?
Well, to be quite honest about you, man, this basically was coming out of my own little minuscule resources. In other words, I've always been very industrious, a writer and a lecturer. I began to lecture for tour companies. I began to write a book. I wrote 2 books. I began to write essays. I put my things on sale at the Art Center. And I must say there was a brother also in the islands that lent himself, the elder Gilbert Trott, Elder Gil Trott. He assisted me as much as he could on a monthly basis. But other than that, there was no support. And mind you, the 17 years that I gave of my life teaching at the W.B. Du Bois Center, I didn't receive not one pesewa of compensation. That is something that the Almighty had just told me that is my mission. And of course it paid off, because all of those 17 years were leading me up to the point of being able to do something that most of my people have never been able to do. And we accomplished that. And when I say we, there were other people around me, but I was like carrying the ball to get the goal. In other words, I was able enough to get a sitting head of state to convince the government of Ghana to give collectively citizenship for the first time ever on the African continent, to give citizenship collectively to Africans of the diaspora. And of course, the Honorable Nikwesi Kwati was very instrumental in helping me to do that, because he was the secretary, executive secretary to the head of state. But he and I got together, we wrote a narrative, on the principles I just said a moment ago.
Yeah.
And it was a two-tier principle. Excuse me. Aside from the Bible,
Yeah.
the head of state wanted to know, what does Ghana gain? We know that Ghana had a lot of slave forts
Yeah.
and whatever. Yeah, I said, yes, okay, it's based on a two-tier principle. The first principle is simply this. It should be a moral obligation for Ghana to give us citizenship. We never asked to leave this continent.
Yeah.
We never asked to leave Ghana. We were kidnapped against our will.
Yeah.
The head of state understood that a moral obligation.
Yeah.
The second tier was to bring economic added value to the economy of Ghana. And I said, I cannot speak for all the African diasporas of the world,
Yeah.
but I can speak for African Americans.
Yeah.
And I know within the framework
Yeah.
in the United States of America that African Americans have a multi-trillion-dollar purchasing economy. And I said to the head of state, if you give African Americans the sovereign right to be citizens of Ghana, they will take their savings and put it in the investment centers here in Ghana. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that was something that really, I believe, really took a lot of interest of the head of state.
Okay.
But I said, if you give them on the second tier, give them citizenship, they will put their money into Ghana. And if we could just get 1/10 or 1% of that multi-trillion dollars, we can turn this economy
We have to
around.
transform
And what
the
we
economy.
did, let me add this before you come in with your question. And the evidence of that
Yeah.
is, like they say, the proof is in the eating of the pudding.
Yeah.
The evidence of that is in the year of return.
Yeah.
That it has been, it's been rumored that it was about over 3 billion, but it's been printed that the government of Ghana received $2.2 billion from Africans of the diaspora in that year.
Okay, so let's move straight back to when you met Honorable Kwesi Kwartey. You were talking about you using the Bible and quoting Genesis chapter 15, verse 13 and 14. Can you please tell us, is it biblically proven, and is there any prophecy in relation with our brothers in the diaspora with the transatlantic slave trade?
Yes, because look, first of all, those people in Israel who claim that they are the children of Israel or the Hebrews, it is not true. It is not true. Even there are passages in the Bible.
Okay.
Well, I think that it said that they even told Jesus that they had never been enslaved. So there is absolutely no evidence whatsoever to show any proof that there was a people enslaved for 400 years, taken to a foreign land, taken from the womb of their mother, other than Africans, descendants of the transatlantic slave trade. Now that has to be clear.
Okay.
That is written even in the United Nations with the Durban Conference that wrote in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it is a crime committed against humanity. What was done. So they never said that with what happened in Israel. We know that in Israel, they lost in World War II about 6 million.
Yeah.
But we know with the transatlantic slave trade, according to UNESCO, in a summary conference in 1974 in Haiti, Port-au-Prince, they said a very modest, apologetic estimate that 210 million Africans were murdered during that 400-year period of the transatlantic slave trade. And let me add this too. And you see, one of the things that in the year of return that had been overlooked and still is overlooked.
Yeah.
The overlooking of the fact is that this movement of the children in the book that I just quoted you a moment ago in chapter 15, Genesis, King James Version, chapter 15, verses 13 and 14.
Yeah.
This is, this is a spiritual.
Yeah.
If you look at it on a scale from 0 to 100%, that is the coming back to the source.
Yeah.
About 90% of this movement
Yeah.
of the children coming back to their motherland, it is spiritual. It is not all material. So you're dealing with a spiritual force. In other words, the Exodus.
Yeah.
And one has to be extremely careful when you are trying to relate to this happening because it's a phenomenon.
Okay.
It is a spiritual force of our brothers and sisters who are coming back. And I'm saying there is the power of the Creator involved in this.
Okay.
And we see as the result the wrath that
Yeah.
has been talked about
Yeah.
that would be falling upon those
Yeah.
who manifested these crimes against humanity.
Yeah.
And certainly it has been declared that the transatlantic slave trade is and always shall be a crime committed against humanity. It is enshrined in the United Nations Charter in 2001 in the Durban Conference in South Africa.
Okay.
So what is happening is now is the judgment is no longer. You're looking at the execution of judgment.
Okay.
And as I see it in a spiritual sense, you're finding that those places in the world, in the United States of America, Western European countries that were involved in the slave trade, they all now are feeling the wrath. And this is just the beginning of what they're going to feel.
So are you saying this on this show today that what is happening now in the United States of America and some European countries is a result of what they did to Africans?
I have no doubt in my mind. I have no doubt unequivocally. And I'm saying this is just the beginning. This is the beginning of the end. Yes.
And are you basing on just Genesis chapter 15 verse 14
Well,
to make this claim?
well, not only Genesis chapter 15, verses 13 and 14, there are other passages. I'm not coming to you from a religious point of view.
Okay.
I am a scientist and a researcher.
Okay.
But I know in researching in the Bible,
Yeah.
you can go to Ezekiel
Yeah.
37.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? And read about us.
The dry
You can
bones.
go to Deuteronomy 68
Yeah.
and read about us.
Okay.
There are so many passages
Okay.
in the Bible that gives a description of what will happen to us. And mind you, what had happened to us because in many instances,
Yeah.
I guess we had broken a covenant.
Yeah.
But we have in my opinion, now this is my personal opinion,
Yeah.
and I've said this in lectures. I've said that the African descendants of the transatlantic slave trade are the sacrificial lamb that has been sacrificed for the redemption of the entire African race. And that is what is spiritual about the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade.
Okay.
And if you go into a certain part of the Bible where it also talks about the missing, the cornerstone that was missing. And we know that the builders tried to build a house. I said upon the ceremony on the 28th of December, it's on video, I said that the African Union tried to build a house starting in 1992, and they excluded Africans of the diaspora. And I told them that the house would not stand unless they include the Africans of the diaspora. Because the Africans of the diaspora, descendants of the transatlantic slave trade, are
The cornerstone.
is and are and always will be
The cornerstone.
of the house to rebuild Africa and make Africa great again.
Okay. So let's move back to where I was. Based on Genesis chapter 15 verse 14, the King James Version is saying the Almighty will judge the country or the people that enslaved its children.
Yes.
So can we say that what is happening now is a result of that?
Well, you know, to be quite honest with you, Frank, I don't find any other reason other than to conclude that people are going through a period right now, a period of feeling the pain of what pain that they have inflicted upon people unnecessarily.
Yeah.
So you may say, like, I know we're in the age of Aquarius.
Yeah.
And the age of Aquarius, in my opinion, is the age of the execution of God Almighty and the African ancestors' judgment that has been put upon man.
Yeah.
We're in the period not of judgment. Nobody is being judged anymore. That time is up. Now judgment has already been passed.
Okay.
What you're into the period right now of the execution of that judgment. And what was that judgment? Guilty as charged. That was the judgment. Guilty as charged. If you understand me.
Yeah.
In the court of law, what does your lordship or your honorship, what do they say? If you're guilty, guilty as charged. No argument. So the evidence is there.
Okay.
No one took Delta Airways 400 years ago to leave from African continent to fly to America. No one took United Airways or Ghana Airways.
Okay.
People were kidnapped against their will. And they were treated lower than the lowest animal on the earth for a period of over 400 years. And it says plainly in the book that God Almighty, at the end of that period, those children would come out with great riches and great substance and return to their motherland. And that God Almighty would judge the perpetrators who actually did the damage to the children.
Yeah.
And this is what is happening in America and it's happening in Europe. And as I said,
and for some makwaba Ediba Fuka TV. So yene the founder of Ministry of the Future, Dr. Hamet Malana na etwetwen common. Ye kwana meka che say after Bromo Bre 1990 na ba bisi year 2019 no. Na meka say the turning point no was 2019 Derby. Turning point no was 2016. And 2016 and a turning point in Ankasa. It's in Eba because after almost struggle ni bibia no in 2015 and His Excellency Kwesi Kote no executive secretary to the president at that time no Dr. Malana and no itimi ekomuntuma boa no itimi boaye ema that time President John Dramani Mahama modern award the citizenship that was in 2016 to Mr. Mo turning point no happened in 2016 it no ye call na asa koton ko twetwe so me ko bibia Dr. Malana let's move straight before we go to the turning point. We don't, most people, I would say I'm part of them, we don't know the difference between the right of return and citizenship. Because somebody might feel, oh, I've gotten a Ghanaian citizenship. A Brazilian can have it, a German can have a Ghanaian citizenship, even the Europeans, that is the UK, the London, and they also have Ghanaian citizenship. So what is the difference between the right of return, the Ghanaian getting a citizenship, and the G of return?
well, let me say it this way.
Yeah.
When we're talking about citizenship,
Yeah.
citizenship, of course, it acknowledges you as having to be a sovereign of a particular nation that you can claim that you're a citizen. They give you a piece of paper and, you know, that's it.
Yeah.
And irrespective of your race, irrespective of your past history, irrespective of anything around you, you know, you're entitled to the constitutionality of a nation that will grant you citizenship.
Yeah.
But here's the case now. Our scenario is entirely 180 degrees different than that.
Okay.
The African descendants. Now, I want to make that perfectly clear, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. We're talking about the African descendants of the 400-year transatlantic slave trade, meaning that the African descendants of the transatlantic slave trade, which is called the African diaspora, the true African diaspora, were kidnapped, meaning that we were already children of the soil of this land.
Okay.
We were of the roots in the soil of this continent of Africa before we were illegally, against our will, snatched, kidnapped, and taken out. Okay. So that has to be the calling, and that has to be, if you will, the approval of this principle by our mothers and fathers who are still here
Okay.
as the custodians of the land. They must acknowledge their children
Yeah.
as being children of the soil, coming from their womb
Yeah.
as a right to return. And then after that, you can just write on a piece of paper, give me a certificate, and say you're a citizen. But acknowledge that I have the right to return. That is the difference.
Okay. And what about the year of return? Why should we be declared that this particular year, that is 2019, is a year of return?
All right, now, how this comes about is this.
Yeah.
Like I said at the outset, African descendants of the transatlantic slave trade, from the first day that we were kidnapped, our forebears, taken illegally to the Americas. And the Americas mean the Caribbean islands, United States of America,
Yeah.
Canada. So it's not just talking about the United States. It means all the way down to Cuba, Brazil, Panama, etc. Our people had that desire and their fight to return.
Okay.
Now, the history books record, and I'm not saying that I totally agree with the date, but that has been the date now that has been recorded in stone, that in the United States of America, the British brought the first slave to Jamestown, Virginia, 1619.
Okay.
So if we look at that as 1619, meaning that from that time that our forebears touched the ground in America, we were doing everything that we could to get back to our motherland.
Yeah.
And so here is a situation that is about to be manifested over a 400-year
Yes.
period.
Okay.
And so we know with the history of slavery in the United States that our forebears fought for their freedom, and we were given our emancipation proclamation under the Juneteenth legal writ in 1963, and of course it became a fact after the Civil War in America in 1865. And then on the road, if you will, to freedom, we produced giants. We produced Du Bois.
Yeah.
We produced Dr. Martin Luther King. And of course, we went all the way up to the White House
Yeah.
to put a black president in the White House. And that, of course, meaning that there was a fulfillment of what had already been foretold. And so by 2019, the Africans in the Americas, what you call African Americans, had been able to manifest, if you will, a principal ideal that was now reduced to a law that would be celebrated in 2019, 400 years of slavery. And that identifies with the Bible. And so the former head of state, President Trump, he had to sign it. He signed that in 2019. It was a House bill that found its way from the Africans of the diaspora in the movement all the way up to the House of Representatives, all the way up to the Senate, and it became a legal House bill that will be in August the 1st, I believe, 2019 would be the end of 400 years of captivity, so-called.
Okay.
Now, you have to understand, those of us who were here in Ghana, going back to where the turning point was that
Yeah.
you mentioned a moment ago,
Yeah.
we were far ahead. We had already started this right to return. And in 2016, we were able enough to get citizenship for our people. And then the government that was in power then, the NDC, lost the election. A new government came in, the NPP. And it is a fact that the NPP, in the office of the president, Deputy Director of Diaspora Affairs, invited Ministry of the Future. Me being the founder, I went there with 3 of my colleagues. Excuse me, we were told to bring no more than 4. The purpose of that meeting was for us to explain the dynamics of how we went about getting citizenship under the previous government. Because this new government coming in now would like to pick up the momentum on that and take it even to another level. by getting many more, which did happen. So I sat there, I explained the whole dynamics of how I taken the bull by the horn, sort of speaking, with the help of some of my members, and we had written a narrative, blah, 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 like I said, based on two principles, based on the moral obligation and the economic benefits that we could bring to Ghana. So this was really an idea, if you will, of the year of return. So along the line, somewhere somebody picked up in the political parties is, well, if they're, now this was in 2017, I just said a moment ago, on the 22nd of January 2017, where the explanation of this was done, where I drew the blueprint, all the detail. Now we're going into the year 2018. And so we know in 2018, His Excellency, the President of Ghana, at the, I think at the United Nations in September, had given the call that Ghana would like to be the host country to celebrate the ending of 400 years of slavery that would be acknowledged in the United States of America. And since we have in Ghana a Jamestown, and we know that according to the history books in America, it was a Jamestown, Virginia, is where the first Africans were landed, the kidnapped African. So now we could look Jamestown to Jamestown. And so Ghana opted to be the host country, and the manifestation of that from the right to return now became the year of return.
Okay, so
is that clear?
Yeah, it's very clear. So how instrumental was your organization, Ministry of the Future? Right from 2016, you were able to convince the president to give citizenship to about 34 people, if I'm right, 34 African Americans or African diasporans to have citizenship. So how were you able to work with this current government to shoot up from 34 to over 126?
Well, from that visit, at the government's invitation that I just mentioned a moment ago, on the 22nd of January 2017, Ministry of the Future now began to manifest and really accelerate the process, because now we knew we had a new government coming in that was in power. They wanted to work with us. We started liaisoning with the office of the president, and to make a long story short, by the 22nd of November 2018, Ministry of the Future had compiled a list of 232 applications of Africans of the diaspora who desired to get their Ghanaian citizenship. And Ministry of the Future, and I bear witness, I personally walked with those applications, because I was instructed to do that, over to the Ministry of the Interior with a cover letter based upon the two principles that I mentioned to you a moment ago.
The two-tier.
I wrote a narrative, 2 pages, and I used statistical data to back up this about tourism. We could help to promote that. We could help bring billions of dollars to Ghana. You understand what I'm saying? Ensuring that PANAFEST, Emancipation Day, all built around the diaspora. And bringing the diaspora, and of course continental Africa, but bringing the diaspora and their revenue to Africa or to Ghana. I put this in this particular cover letter with the applications, 232. So the long and the short of that, after submitting that to a copy to the head of state, a copy to the Minister of the Interior, a copy to the Director of Diaspora Affairs, and I believe I sent one to the African Union, to the Honorable Nii Kwesi Kwarteng. Now then, that was on the 22nd of November, 2018. And so, lo and behold, on the 28th of May, 2019, the state newspaper, the Daily Graphic, printed a big whole cover page in the middle that His Excellency the President has approved over 200 applications to be of African diasporas to become Ghanaian citizens. I jumped, all of us in Ministry of the Future, we jumped with joy. We were so happy. That was on the 28th of May, 2019. And so it became evident by the month of November, we began to get invitations to set up, to start preparations for the ceremony at the banquet hall. It wasn't, we didn't have the date, but we were invited over to the office of the president. We met there upon several occasions. My secretary, Sister Asedu, her name is slipping me right now, but Sister Asedu, she came over there with us. Millie Tucker, Asedu, and a couple of others, and we went and liaisoning with government officials, the Honorable Akwasi Ababio, and it was a situation where we liaison with them to try to get the listing of this 232, and I was told at that time that there were an additional 20 that came from other Africans of the diaspora organization that had actually jumped on the bandwagon, and they submitted 20 of them along with our 232. And we were told at the time at the meeting of the office of the president, it was a week before the ceremony. The ceremony would come on the 27th of November, 2019. So if you backtrack a week before then, whatever date that was, it was only about 2 weeks or a week before then, where it was said that His Excellency had approved 252. And we were under the impression that 252, but then we realized on that visiting occasion that everyone was not going to get their certificate that was approved. So the long and the short of it was that on the night of the ceremony, for the swearing in oath of allegiance to become a Ghanaian citizen, government had released 126 names with certificates, and we were told that the balance of the 126 would come later. But on that night, which was a glorious night for the Africans of the diaspora, they were so happy, and I was so happy for them, that 126 received their Ghanaian citizenship on the 27th of November, 2019.
Okay, wow. So from there, what was the way forward for this year? And people are watching. You know the problem that most of them had in 2016 was they didn't believe it.
No,
they didn't believe it. So that is why you had only 34 people. But later they started coming. So now, what's the way forward? If somebody's watching in the Caribbean and the person wishes to be a citizen.
Well, the way forward is that, you know, as all things that you do, Ministry of the Future is a non-governmental organization. But we are registered with the Office of the President under the umbrella of the Office of Diaspora Affairs. But, you know, this is a government project now. Because we're talking about Ministry of the Future cannot give you citizenship. The only thing we can do, we can assist you and show you the blueprint, and of course, chaperone to make sure you get what you have. We can help you to do that, and that's what we've done. But the government has taken over this project, and so if you ask me what is the way forward, this goes back to our initial 1990 with Sister Amaku's 1992, the late Fiancra Nana Kwadwo Akpan, and I must admit another name that I lost in there, Nana Atta. I forget. He's deceased. But Nana Atta, he played a major role. They all were trying to bring about the right to return. We want it to be enshrined in the Constitution, like the State of Israel. The State of Israel says no matter where a Jew is in the world, they have the right by the Constitution of the state to return to Israel as a citizen. I'm talking about the political Israel
okay.
today.
Okay.
So we feel that we have felt all along that our requests and desire to be Ghanaian citizens should not be predicated upon a yearly begging, sort of speaking, that, would you please give us in? Let's enshrine that in the Constitution. So irregardless or irrespective of what government is in power, you understand what I mean? It's in the Constitution that we are entitled, if we desire and meet the criteria. And lo and behold, it has finally come to a reality. And I want the viewing audience to understand that these things that I'm talking about didn't fall from the sky. These things, there was hard work, sacrifice by many of us, spending our last pesewa selflessly, to help our brethren and sisters to come home. And so lo and behold, right now, the government of Ghana effectively, in the year 2021, has finalized a bill called the Ghana Homeland Return Act. And my understanding now in 2022, the bill has been completed. I contributed submissions to the language in the bill to make sure that the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade was mentioned, rather than just, as we had learned earlier, you're talking about African Americans. No, we are Africans of the diaspora, but even Africans of the diaspora must be specifically defined. And I said it should be descendants of the transatlantic slave trade. And to the best of my knowledge, they have inserted that into the Constitution of this particular bill. And it's called the Ghana Homeland Return Act. You can look it up on Google, it's there. But it needs to be signed by the head of state. That is the way forward. And Ministry of the Future is continuously taking applications. And we intend for our applicants to benefit under this law, because Ministry of the Future is one of the pioneers that fought for this. And we did it over a period of 35 to 40 years. So we're not joking. So if you want to get your Ghanaian citizenship, connect with Ministry of the Future, and we will help to take you forward to make sure that you get your Ghanaian citizenship under this new bill that is about to come out.
Okay, so we need to place the contacts and address on the screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we have the contact, the numbers. You can visit the website to www.ministryofthefuture.com for more information about the citizenship application and everything. Dr. Mna, before we go, do you have anything else to tell our viewers?
Well, not really. The only thing that I can say, based upon my period of time that I've lived on the African continent, I would entreat every African of the diaspora to make preparations to have a plan B. I want to repeat that. Make preparations. Have a plan B to get out when an emergency happens in your part of the world. Because I do believe some serious emergencies are going to take place in your part of the world. And you must have a home away from home, a home that you can return to, and that is your motherland. If something happens to Irish who's living in America, the Irish person would go back to Ireland. If it happened to the Japanese would go back to Japan. If it happened to the Italian would go back to Italy. It happened to the British would go back to Britain. The German would go back to Germany. But the African American, there's no country called African American. Where will you go if a crisis breaks out and you don't have an alternative to stay where you are? You must look to Africa for your future. Those in the Caribbean, they also must look to Africa. Africa is a humongous continent, and it was made to be humongous to support its children to return in these last days that we're in right now. So if you ask me what is my message, my message is simply this. Make sure you get your paperwork, your passports in order, and have a plan B. Contact Ministry of the Future. We will give you the blueprint and roadmap on how to come home. May God bless you.
Okay. May God bless you. Thank you for your time today. Dr. Mlana Netin kase yene ne twetwe nkomo na wakasa bebre na kasa wakani nyina ne tofa bomun ene ye baby okan ya ye very 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 crucial pan say o say owo abrochi na we African diaspora and now we African American na say o hwe ya me pa chow nya plan B nya plan B pa fi say bia na bibie ba besi nti se umpe another kwan bi a obetimi de abafie fi se obi Germany ni ewo America na se BBC a obesa akọ Germany se obi ofi London ekọ America na BBC a obesa akọ back to London nanso ye ni kuro bi e wo wiase a ye frɛ no African American and as a country I friend African American bi ni hosa eno ane say ye beba back to bibi a ye maame ene ye papa nom enso anan nananom esu efi etino ha say ne brema kwani dwume de nyina tumi esi ede ma mede Franco so kejesi ama Ebenezer Frimpong and afi so Dublin Jackson Sewakoto and afi so Benny Spain no nyina mutumi bo production ama bia etimi ekonka ede ma Mr. Call www.ministryofthefuture.com www.ministryofthefuture.com nekosua ade more there are so many informations na go a Ministry of the Future mo ye weekly news outlet bi I know so no obetimi ehu so many things about Dr. Herbert Malana won say na meka say ye frɛ no master teacher no benya ne Ghana ha say emra na ochra de WE Du Bois Center wa Accra ha say na cause ochra de fiti year the 1990 ababesi 2007 continuously rain or shine so to we abo anytime bia na chese ochra de sa the product ni be so many people ma be ministers be even cry no former president John Dramani Mahama have visited the class da oni nua Ibrahim Mahama o ma visited the class da nti no me pa cho ha say na di bia etimi me adwa next week e be sign aba wa yakram